Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our podcast. I am first joined by my brothers Adam and Eric, and we are back in the room to talk more about video games.
I didn't realize you were starting. Sorry.
Sorry.
Because I was meant to just go, hello!
Well, I was meant to say you should have done it, but you just did. Like, okay, well, there you go. It's been done. We spent the last few episodes focused on the Final Fantasy VII Remake, and in this new age of remakes and remaking games, there's been a few that have been in the mill and been talked about, and one that's been thrown around quite a lot recently, and to the point where I think some people are pretty certain it's happening. Like, it's a case of when, not a case of if, and that is a remake of Resident Evil 4. Scary. And that's a game that we mentioned before as one of our favorite PS2 games, and we did a segment on what would we class as the top 5 best PS2 games in our opinion. Resi 4 was one of them. So what we're going to do for this episode is we're going to discuss our take on Resident Evil 4, and then at the end of it, try and answer the question as to whether we think it should be remade. Because I suppose you can always have amazing games. It doesn't mean all of them need to be remade, but then we might also feel like, yeah, hell yeah, remake it. It was awesome. So let's see what we think of it. If you have heard us before, you know what the deal is. We're going to discuss the episode in great length, give our take on the game, everything about it. It will be spoiler filled. So we are treating this as if you have played the game, you are at least familiar with the game, or you don't care and you just want to listen to couple of guys talk about a game. So if you've been to the channel before, welcome back. But if you're new, welcome, stranger. Let's talk Resident Evil 4.
He said the thing, guys. He said the thing.
There.
He set up the episode title. So I suppose we should go around, all three of us, and first of all, just give I know we've spoken about this very briefly, but since this is a dedicated episode, we should say, in general, our thoughts on the game or what the game did for us individually.
Last time,
yeah.
So
Don't forget what you said last time. This is new. This is a remake of last time. So Eric, will we start with you?
Sure. What are you asking?
I'm asking. What do you want to know? Come on, I'm an open book. Tell me what you want to know. I'll tell you. How do you feel about Resident Evil 4? What's your take on it in general?
It was the game that got me into horror games. Like, I used to be shit scared of like everything, and then I played this, and I just kind of kept. I used to always play the first chapter or the first act, because it's split into like 5 acts, and each act is like 3 segments or something. I used to play that one over and over again because it was daytime, so I wouldn't be as scared as much. But then I decided to actually venture further, and now I just love that game. And I do love horrors that are like that as well. So it really did open up a whole new segment of stuff to do.
Whole new world. Well, yeah, like, you wouldn't try a horror game before this one, really, would you?
Oh, God,
any of us?
Hey, I'm starting with Eric, okay? I'm not ready. I'm not ready.
I will get to you.
We'll get to you. The court will come to you. But what about the game made it okay to play this one? That's I suppose what I'm wondering.
Well, the guns. I had because I could defend myself. All right.
Right, but Resident Evil had guns before. Silent Hill had guns.
Well, it was the cam. Well, okay. So the fact that they revamped how a horror game would work, and actually it revamped how games work, having the whole over-shoulder view, and kind of, I don't know, made it a lot easier to be able to shoot the guys rather than that fixed camera angle bullshit that we had to put up with earlier. The fact that
it's bullshit. If you like that shit, it's bullshit.
Well, it's bullshit to be scared, all right? Make games difficult.
Being scared is bullshit.
No one should like that.
That should be on a t-shirt. Like, it's so...
Yeah.
Yeah. For people who want to overcome fear. Being scared is bullshit. Also, just on the topic of fear, like depending on whether you're watching this as a video or listening as a podcast, Adam, your shoulder keeps disappearing into the graveyard. That is your background, and it's fucking terrifying. But Adam,
Yeah.
your take on the game in general.
Same as Eric, it was my introduction to horror. It's not the first horror game I ever touched. I think Resi 2, I think, was the first horror game I played. Or at least watched someone play. I don't know if I actually controlled the game itself. Silent Hill is another one I remember trying on a demo. No way. But I would disagree, Eric. I'd say that the beginning of it isn't easier because it's daylight. I think it made it showed that daylight can be scary also.
Oh yeah.
So
But
I
it's
remember
it's not as scary though as when you're like back in the village at nighttime and you have the thunder and lightning going off, and it's just like, oh, there's one guy, and it goes off again. Oh, there's 10 of them, and then it's just completely surrounded and you're dead.
yeah, but I like, cause it was my friend who had it for the GameCube.
Shout out,
It
Mr.
was
Redmond.
Mr. Redmond. It was because it was supposed to be a GameCube exclusive.
Yeah.
I thought it was just straight up an exclusive. It was obviously just a timed one. But he played it on the GameCube, and it was just that opening with the village. Like, we played it early, and I was walking home, and it was still, the sun was out, and I was shit scared walking home on my own. Like, it was like previous games, obviously the dark is scary, but they used it to their advantage because they couldn't have as many villains on the screen. Or Silent Hill uses the fog, like the kind of fog of war style mechanic, because the draw distance isn't there. But what made this scary is the fact that you could see far, and you could see hundreds of people on screen. I know that's an exaggeration. It's probably like 20. But
no, but in your mind,
in your mind, yeah, it just looks like a huge mob. Yeah, it was terrifying. But I think I got it on the PS2. It was a year later when I got it, and it was in, I think, Tesco supermarket. Just with Dad, just doing the shopping, and then I saw that, and I was like, oh my god, I can't believe it's on PlayStation 2. Because like, I really, really wanted to try it, but I didn't want to splash out for a GameCube just for the one game.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So I didn't have to do much begging. If my mom was there, it would have been an absolute, like, no way. It's like, this is the, sorry for people listening on audio, but that's the case, and you can kind of see by it. It's just like,
yeah, like, even if you didn't know, oh my god, sorry, I just see the rating there. In my memory, it was 18s, but it's not 18s.
15s, yeah.
I'm very surprised. I actually thought it was for its time, purely because of obviously, like, times have changed in video games. Like, if that came out today, absolutely, I wouldn't question it being a 15s game. But just at the time, the Dr. Salvador coming out with the chainsaw and cutting your head off, I would have thought straight away developers are like, that's an 18s rating right there, like, I'm actually very surprised. I thought it was R-rated.
I kind of feel like it could have been on the GameCube.
Because I thought I remembered seeing an 18s rating on the case. But
yeah, but
just
we'll probably get into it. But there is a clear difference between the GameCube and the PS2 version. But I didn't really care at the time. Like, I didn't realize at the time, to be honest. But I was just excited to be able to finally play the game.
Yeah.
So I took that home, and I kind of I don't know how I got through it, because a year later I was still shit scared of the game, but yeah, managed to get through it and clear it. So that ever since then I was like, yeah, like it's a kind of genre I dabble in. I'm not like full on in horror.
Yeah.
But it was definitely my introduction into horror games.
Yeah, I think I feel the same way as you guys, as well as having a stammer there. The game was definitely a gateway game into the genre of horror, and not just in games, but in movies as well. I was too afraid to try out horror, and it wasn't. I was never really afraid of monsters as a kid, because there were some movies where, like, Blade is a good example. Like Blade was a movie franchise that is not a horror franchise, but there is horror elements. Like the vampires are horrific monsters, right? There was plenty of movies I could watch that had monsters in it, but they didn't have the horror atmosphere, and it was the atmosphere that I was not able for as a child. Like too creeped out by it, and it would like mess up my head later on at night when you're trying to sleep, and then you start thinking about it, and you go, now I can't sleep. So Resi 4 was the first time where like I was shit scared watching and playing that game, because I watched it first. There's no way I tried playing it first, not a hope. But the thing that got me into it, the gateway into it, was the similarities I could see in it with Metal Gear Solid at the time.
Yeah.
Right. So that was like my gateway in. I was like, okay, well, he's an action hero, or he's a super spy, right? And you collect your weapons just like in Metal Gear Solid. You fight bosses just like Metal Gear Solid. You've got your like walkie-talkie codec system, kind of like Metal Gear Solid. Oh, Hunnigan, she's my Otacon. Okay, so at all those moments when there was something scary going on, I had something that was like my safe anchor helping me through it. And once I got over that, it just became a thing of, I'm just really interested in what's actually going on now. Like now my curiosity is, it's like, as scary as this is, I really want to know. And as a result, like I think that's one of the highlights of horror as a genre. There's plenty of shit horrors, but there's plenty of really good ones where like the plot is usually, it can be really good. Like, and often that's what you're watching for. Like there's often a mystery element to a horror. Like there could be a monster, and the thing is, what is the monster, or what caused the monster, or what brought this whole scenario about?
Yeah.
And I've always been interested in mystery elements. So it got me in on the Metal Gear Solid kind of similarities. I was like, okay, I'm in on that aspect. Then the mystery got me. And then the more it played out, just the more interesting it was. And I was like, well, if this wasn't a horror, would it be as interesting? And I think the answer is no, because you see it later in the Resi series. They started stripping away the horror elements. And as a result, they just weren't as interesting. And it's like, yeah, okay, so they've bulked up the action gameplay, which is the thing that I thought I solely liked about Resi 4 at first. But it turns out, no, it's not, because you play Resi 6 and you go, this feels shit. And I don't know why. What's shit about it? I realize it's the horror. I actually like horror. I just didn't know I liked it. So yeah, in a similar way, I think Resi 4 was like my gateway into that as a genre. And as well, like, I would never have tried horror movies had I not gotten over that game first. Just probably loads of people listening go, you pussies. It's not even that scary. I suppose that's the question next is, is it scary? Was it just scary for its time, or is it still scary?
It probably, in comparison to other horror games, it probably wasn't actually that scary for people used to horror games.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it did have like the action element to it.
Yeah.
But that was their aim. Like Resident Evil as a series was getting very, very stale. You know, there's a few diehard fans that like didn't care. They just wanted the next Resident Evil. But Resident Evil games were always kind of feeling like the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. And they wanted to reinvent it in a way that would honor the existing fans but bring in new fans. And I think they absolutely achieved that. Like with us, even, like, you know, I didn't play any Resident Evil games until this one, really.
Yeah.
But I personally think that even on my first playthrough, the beginning is scary. I think the further you get into it, it's not as scary. I think once you leave the kind of villagers, the Ganados, regular lads, like the house where
the regular Joes, you know,
Regular
down by the lake there, dumping bodies, you know, regular lads, like.
Is it Carlos? Is that his name? The guy that you're protecting the house with?
Oh, Luis Serra.
Yeah, Luis.
His name's not Carlos at all.
Carlos at all. I was like, I'm just going to try to guess there. Is it Antonio? Is it? Is it what was it? Is it? Luis is his name, yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. Protecting the house with him. Like, that's probably the peak of the horror, I think, in the game. And then after that, it's really not that scary after that. Like the concept of the cult. Yeah, the
Yeah.
concept of the priests, I think, is kind of
creepy, but you kind of get used to them because you have all the better weapons and you got more ammo.
well.
And
There's
your
just
health
something
is
about
increased.
like it becomes very supernatural at that point. Like and the church, the castle kind of setting, isn't as creepy. Like, and then you get to like the military
Yeah.
base where they've got like they just look like soldiers. Really, they don't really even look like.
And even some of them have guns.
Yeah.
There are crossbows actually in that one.
Yeah, crossbows. One guy has a minigun, I think.
Well, guys, what?
I think one there because you know
Yeah,
like
he's got a minigun,
each location has like their unique enemy.
Yeah, they're little mini boss kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. So like there was Dr. Salvador with the chainsaw, then there was the
What were they called
castle
again?
guy. I can't remember who the castle guy was, and then there was the minigun chap.
Yeah, he had like a spiky armor on him, didn't he?
There was two of them, I think, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was variants of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just think that like, and I think they like maybe they did it on purpose. Maybe they were trying to get you into the flow of it. Like you're starting to become more familiar with the weapons, and it just becomes kind of just a shooter game at that point. And then they they come at you with the fucking regenerators.
Oh yeah.
You
Those
know,
guys
like
are nasty.
would they have been as scary and as creepy if they didn't go like kind of that action orient? Like they were able to balance it. I think it's like you're starting to get used to it now. So here's something else to creep you out.
Right. Yeah. Add a new element. What do you think, Eric? Is the game still scary, or was it just scary at its time, or was it ever scary?
Well, there was. I think the last question you asked, we all answered, and yes, it was scary at some point. But I think like I've gotten so used to it now. I've played and cleared it so many times at this point
Yeah.
on PS2 and the Wii. So I don't think it'd be scary for me now. But I think if they are remaking it with new graphics and following their new trend of having someone stalk you around the whole place, I think that'll be pretty terrifying, especially if the guy stalking you is the guy with the chainsaw.
Well, actually, on that note, and I wasn't going to go into the premise of a remake just yet, but just while you've said
sorry.
that, no, but while you've said that, if there was a remake, do you think that they should have someone stalk you?
No.
Yeah, I don't either. It was just
No, it only made sense for the other two because
made sense for the other two because they did, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that
that's
was
the way it was in the
actually in
original.
the plot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I just wonder whether we're all on the same.
I think
same page on it.
the map, which I love the map. I love all the different locations in Resident Evil 4.
Yeah.
I think would be too big though for someone trying to stalk you.
Yeah, and like there's no point in trying to. And that's another thing. Should they rework the game to work in the Metroidvania style of say 2, or should they do it in its chapter layout, much like the original?
I don't think they
It's
need.
going to be a remake. It needs to be like the original. Yeah.
I don't think they need the chapters, but I still think keep the puzzles and the keys and all the stuff that they had from the.
Oh yeah, no, I know
anyway.
that, but like, so should they go from a village to a castle to an island?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or should they change that?
No, keep exactly
Yeah,
the same.
they should go from island to castle to village.
Play the
Work
game
their way back.
backwards.
Yeah,
Go
yeah, yeah.
Memento on this shit. But yeah, I suppose, Eric, so obviously it's not scary to you now because you played it so much, but do you think objectively the game is scary? Like if you were to give it to someone new who's never played it before, do you think they'd find it scary?
I think they might find elements scary, but
Yeah.
considering me and you were playing it recently, Chris, I think they'll get more annoyed considering what they're used to nowadays, and then the kind of clunkiness of the camera work and everything in this game. I think
Yes.
they'll get annoyed before they get scary.
Yeah, like it's got a creepy atmosphere, and obviously depending on your age or your own threshold in terms of how you feel about violence and visual imagery. But if you're into horror, I don't think it's particularly scary anymore. It certainly was for me younger, but I mean, yeah, we were all pussies when it came to the genre of horror anyway. Like, so we were going to find it scary. But I don't think hardcore like horror veterans would have found it scary. I think the game was probably more stressful than it is scary. So it puts into moments that are like for me, like I'd be going, fuck off. But I'm not scared. Like, I'm not going to be thinking about it later and kept up by it. It's just in that moment I'm getting stressed out because, and it is actually, as you were saying, Eric, the elements of the gameplay. So on that note, how do we all feel about the gameplay of Resi 4?
Definitely, like, if, again, I'm bringing it back up again, if they are remaking it, that the reworking the gameplay would be handy. Like, it worked for the time.
Yeah, at the time it was revolutionary.
Yeah,
because it
redefined how to do games.
Much like, this might be a strange comparison, I feel like Resident Evil 4 was the Last of Us of the PS2 era. And that's not to say, like in my opinion, The Last of Us was the best PS3 game. And I'm not saying that Resi 4 was solely the best PS2 game. Like, that depends on your own opinions or whatever. But it pretty much influenced the next generation of games.
Yeah.
So on the PS3, very early on, there were so many games trying to replicate everything from the camera angle to the QuickTime events that Resi 4 popularized. Like, there was so much stuff in it that it influenced. In the same way as then when you see the PS4 era is totally influenced by The Last of Us. Like, literally every game tried to do what the last, I felt like its gameplay was definitely revolutionary at its time, but yes, if you go back to play it now, man, that game is clunky.
It's it is very clunky, but like, just the games that came before, there was nothing like it. It was the fact that you could aim for any part of the body and they'd react when you shoot them. Like, so if you shot them in the leg, they'd fall over and stuff like that. Like, that's like, there's a bit of that in Metal Gear Solid 2, of course, but there's just something about Resident Evil 4 that was just snappier when you're aiming, and you're not like changing your angle, like bringing that camera angle right over the shoulder. As you said, like, it's, would we have Gears of War? Would we have Uncharted? Like, that type of gameplay in it? Dead Space absolutely would not exist.
Yeah.
100%.
But even like, sure, like the Arkham games took that over shoulder view. Some of the Hitman games took that over shoulder view.
God of War.
It just became this new standard. Like, it became a whole new camera angle that just, it's weird to say that, like, when people saw that, their minds are blown. You know what I mean? Because all it is a shift to one side,
They move
but
it lazily to the left.
But it does create like huge problems. They have to overcome huge problems with trying to do that, because if like I said, like Metal Gear Solid, you could shift to a first person perspective, but like it's almost like a camera cut. So what they render at that time, then they're able to change what they're like, all the assets that they're bringing in and stuff like that. Whereas Resident Evil 4 is just, it's constant that you're able to see your entire environment and how much they are trying to load up. Like the GameCube, I can understand how they managed it, but to get it to work on the PS2, I thought was pretty impressive. Because if we look at games where you could change like Grand Theft Auto, for example, on the PS2, you could shift the camera angle down to like an over-shoulder kind of view and run around. But there's huge limitations on the type of, like, kind of the asset details and stuff like that, and the pop-ins, etc. So yeah, it really did push the industry forward. So like, kind of going back and kind of saying, oh, this game doesn't play well. It's like, you kind of have to put yourself in the mindset. Like, they shouldn't have. I don't think they should have re-released it on something like the PS4 and stuff like that. I think, PS3 they should have just left that way.
Yeah. Like I said, don't get me wrong. I said there's an absolute love for the game. Like, the gameplay was amazing at its time, and there's elements of the game mechanics that are perfect for the game that it is. Like, in terms of like organizing your weapons and trying to manage your survival assets. Like, they still have that in Resi games now, where you're like, my case is not big enough and I'm going to have to make a choice. Do I need an extra weapon or do I need an extra herb? Like, what am I going to do here? All of that still works. I suppose the only thing that bothers me now, and it's purely because of what we're used to in games now. Like, it wasn't an issue back then because you didn't have it to miss it. And that's just being able to aim and move.
Yep.
That's literally the only thing. But I just found when we were replaying it, I was like, oh my fucking god, I want to be able to move backwards while I'm aiming. Like, it's a tiny thing, but you do find yourself like, going, do I have to exit out of this view to move? And then the camera angles are like, the camera is very annoying sometimes. Like, it's not moving the way you want it to.
Yeah.
But that
It's
is
almost it's almost
now.
a fixed camera nearly.
Yeah.
Just instead of it being fixed overhead, it's fixed behind you. But no, I quite like the fact that you can't move and shoot. I think it lends itself well to that game, not necessarily in later games.
Yeah.
But in that one, it works because it's that whole you can't see what's coming up behind you kind of a thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
yeah.
you're fighting with the mechanic. That helps make it scary at the beginning and stuff like that. That along with the music, it's just. And the voices, you could hear the voices going up behind you, but you can't see behind you and stuff like that. It
puts you on edge.
Yeah,
it does work for the game. It does. And I think as well, some of this, even though they're not timed, like they can happen at different times in the game. It depends on how you play it. But a lot of the jump scares of the game are a result of that mechanic.
Yeah.
Because you don't know if someone's behind you. You suddenly get out of view. You turn around and suddenly there's 10 of them behind you. One of them has a chainsaw, and you're going, well, shit. Like you jump the minute you see them because you weren't ready for it. That is achieved through that mechanic, even though they're not specific jump scares. If you know what I mean, like they're not at certain times or anything. But yeah, when I say like I'm giving out about that now, that's literally because of what I'm used to now, like going back to it.
Gone so far
in its time. Absolutely, like I had no issues with the gameplay. I thought it was amazing, and I still do. Like it works totally for that game, and the amount of weapons you can get and building up your cash and putting on body armor and everything, like all that stuff is again, those are the things that kind of reminded me of like Metal Gear Solid as well. What did we think of the characters in this game? Because it's quite character heavy.
I like Salazar.
You like him?
Yeah, I do.
What do you like about him?
He's the sadistic playfulness of him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he kind of almost it's like it's little person Joker kind of character, I suppose. That like he will put you through hell and he will be laughing his arse off. So it's like kind of shows that the Last Plagueis kind of affects the mind of everyone as well, turning them absolute like batshit. And I loved his guards as well.
His two guards are awesome, cool. Which are basically Alien and Predator in a blender, but are much better than the Alien and Predator that they actually put in a blender.
Yeah,
you notice that?
Yeah,
they look way cooler than the actual Predalien. Was that what it was called?
Predalien, yeah.
Predalien. The Pralien. His two.
Line?
What are they supposed? All right, okay. This is. I'm gonna go off topic a little bit. What are they supposed to be?
They're Last Plagueis.
Are they just like a parasite fully grown and listening to this little guy, or are they people that transformed?
Hard to know. It seems as though they were experimenting with the Plagueis in many ways, and perhaps maybe that's like the way when you shoot the heads off Ganados, there's like that kind of insecty like kind of
the larva looking one, like
like maybe maybe they're what happens when they no longer need a host. Maybe it's a fully grown thing. Like I said, the lore is probably in the game somewhere. That's the only thing that with that game is that there is lots of manuscripts that explain a lot of this stuff, and unless you collect them all, it's really deep with lore.
Yeah, like you will always get, I think, the general gist of what's going on. You'll get a fair idea. Like you won't be robbed of a story if you play it and don't collect the manuscripts, but you will definitely get more out of the experience if you collect the manuscripts, and you'll find out a little bit more about the mining community and when they found this thing and all that stuff.
That's
go on.
It's a question for me. Does anyone know when they found it? Because like the villagers' clothes are like 1800s kind of peasant clothes, and then you got the castle and they're all dressed like monks or aristocrats, and then you got the military guys.
I think it's been around for quite a long time, because even their church and their gravestones have like insignias and things of the cult. and the insignia is the Plagas. It's the
Yeah.
So I think they've actually had it for quite a long time. They've been worshipping it for a long time, and they've just had recent plans of expanding for whatever reason. Like power has gone. Maybe maybe Sadler wasn't always the hive mind of it all.
No, I don't think he was.
And now
I
he
think,
has become.
as far as I remember, the castle is like so that's the family that once used the Plagas.
Right. Okay.
And that's why it's a castle, and that's why like the village was then built in and around those old castle grounds. And what happens was they came across in the mines, and they kind of brought it back to life, kind of a thing. And I think that Salazar is just kind of getting back in touch with his heritage. I don't think it's anything to do with like him being around for that long.
Right.
It's
Okay.
like it's almost as if like, well, this is what my ancestors, with these grounds and stuff, this is what they did, and he's kind of like continuing that. As far as I remember, I think it's something along those lines.
It
And
could be it.
Sadler, I think, is looking to exploit that.
Yeah, he's definitely manipulating like everyone.
That's one thing as well. I love that the three leaders, the three different areas, are so different to each other as well. That's another
Yes.
reason why I like Salazar, is that he is very different to Sadler and Mendez. It makes him very memorable.
Oh,
Mendez.
Mendez. Yeah.
I always call,
I
I called
he's
him
just Big Cheese.
the
Big
big cheese
Cheese.
for so long. I thought that, like, I don't know why I thought this, when Louis Serra calls him that, right? And he's just saying it as like he's kind of making fun of him. I took that as genuinely that's what this guy is called when I first played it. I don't know why. I think because I was used to like Kojima, who calls characters all sorts of weird things, and you just go, yeah, sure, fat man. He's a fat man, yeah. So yeah, this guy it genuinely is the big cheese. Yeah, he's big cheese man. But yeah, his name is actually Mendez. He is very threatening.
Yeah.
He's scary.
Yeah, he is.
Cool design. I like how often you run into him, and he like whoops your ass in videos a couple of times, so that when it comes to the fight with him, like he's kind of been pumped up to be this big brawling henchman, and you're like, oh shit, I gotta fight this guy.
Yeah,
But
and then
his creature design is weird.
he turns into a real scrawny thing then.
Yeah,
Like,
you're like,
what?
you were way scarier with your trench coat on.
Yeah.
Before you had all these fucking like tentacle things.
Your rib cage is just extended.
You're just taller now. That's not scary.
It's very necromorph looking, isn't it? Like the
Much so.
Dead Space stuff.
Yeah. I like. There's no doubt about it. Dead Space, but visually and how it plays is inspired by this game. And in good ways. That's not like a dig at Dead Space. It's a good thing. We were talking there about those like Salazar's guards and what they were. I'm just curious. Do you guys have any idea what the El Gigante and the Del Lago actually are? Just on the topic of bosses.
Del Lago, I thought, was like a crocodile or a fish, but the last Plagas itself expanded its body and mutated it, and then it became that big.
Yeah,
because it has like the little arm thingies that crocodiles have. So I'm pretty sure it's like a crocodile.
I don't think it's a crocodile, but it's definitely some sort of fish.
I think it's a crocodile.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, it's mountain. It has the big tail that moves like that, and it's in a lake.
Yeah.
And I think it might be a callback to when Leon had to fight it's either an alligator or a crocodile in the sewers in Resi 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because it's the first boss you fight in the game as well, as Leon. But I'm not. I'm not sure. But the El Gigante really confuses the shit.
I think the El Gigante is supposed to be like if you took someone and you lock them away, so there's no sunlight or anything like that, and they have the Plagas in them and stuff like that. That's why I think they're, opening the gate and stuff like that.
Right.
But something to do with, putting someone in that type of isolation with the Plagas kind of mutates them in a different way.
So it is a person.
I think so. Yeah. I don't know.
I thought it would be like a thing.
It could be just like a weird mythologic mythic creature of that area, maybe. I don't know. It's Bigfoot. It's the Sasquatch.
It's
the troll.
It's the cave troll from Lord of the Rings.
It really
I remember.
is, like...
Well, actually, and that's another thing that strangely got me into the game. because I loved Lord of the Rings. I was like, oh, cool, the cave troll from Lord of the Rings. Like at the time, I was like, great.
I thought they were just giving the guy a bunch of roids. They're like, yeah, I'll just
Get
pump
pumped
him
up.
out now.
I suppose
Yeah.
the Gigante is kind of the tyrant of Resi 4, right? Like it's kind of, the tyrants of the older Resis. Just kind of.
Sure, whatever you say.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So sorry, we're talking a lot about the bosses when we said characters. We haven't even mentioned. Come on, guys. Leon S. Kennedy, our main man. What do we think of him?
Absolute badass. I think this is the best version of Leon.
Resi 4 version?
Yeah, I really do. Like it's kind of, because you didn't play as him for a long time. Like you played as him as the kind
The
of
rookie
in 2.
Right.
And I think this is such a great way to introduce him. It has that kind of Solid Snake kind of thing to him, where it's like you understand that he's gone through stuff in the past.
Yeah.
And the way he comes back into it, that he's like this really experienced agent. So he's obviously done shit in between as well. And it's really cool to like play as that kind of I think it makes the playing the horror thing a bit easier as well, because you're this really experienced dude, but because it's a new enemy that he's never experienced before, you are experiencing it with him for the first time. So I really like it.
Yeah. What about you, Eric?
Oh, well, I think they definitely managed to make Leon, even though he's got a like little emo fringe thing going on, they did manage to make him the coolest guy in like Resident Evil franchise.
Yeah.
And I think it's down to, again, basing it off like Solid Snake or basing it off those action movies, that he's got those cheesy one-liners and everything,
Yes.
and he's got like the knife fight with Krauser. So yeah, he's got
That's
that
so
little,
good.
like,
I love that. I love that bit. The quick time event. Like,
yeah.
And again, they didn't happen all that often in games before that.
No.
But they became a big thing after it.
Yeah, it's just his kind of cockiness.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
Just made him a really likable, and he didn't have that kind of, I don't know, Superman kind of attitude. Like Chris Redfield is kind of like the Superman of it. Like he's just this goody two shoe. Oh, she's my partner. Let's go help each other out. While Leon is more like the lone wolf, like Batman or something.
Right.
You know what
Okay.
I mean? So it just makes him a lot more likable and just cooler to play as.
Do you have a favorite? You mentioned his one-liners. Do you have a favorite one?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's when I think it's the end of the castle sequence. It's also again to do with Salazar.
Yeah,
So Salazar's
shit.
there, and he's got his other predalien bodyguard, and they go into the weird mushroom Las Plagas thingy
Yeah.
and morph together and become this weird Final Fantasy boss.
Yeah, they do actually, yeah, because he even has the flower thing opens up,
Yeah.
and Salazar has like the big added thing on and the white hair. You're like, yeah, I've seen that before in a JRPG.
Yeah.
And it's when Leon just kind of looks at the door and he turns back and he's like, huh, monsters. At least after this, there's one less to worry about. It's like, Leon,
Love
cheesy
it.
one-liners.
Love it. Yeah, I love that one as well. It's so good. He's like, monsters. He's like, pfft.
Yeah.
This big fuck off thing he's never seen before. He's just like, well, at least after this, I'll have one less to worry about. Yeah. That's so good. You can nearly see him throwing shades on for the fight,
Yeah, well, it's really nice that it's like, when you see characters like that in films of that time, like they're just so stupid. Like even the Resident Evil films, like
Yeah.
like when people try to be cool, they fail miserably.
Yeah.
I've nothing against The Rock, but The Rock at that time in films like Doom and stuff, you're just like, oh man, just stop trying and you may be cool. But that's what I really liked about Leon's in that game. It's like he's not trying to be cool. He just straight up is.
Yeah. That was a conversation I'd had before. I can't remember who we were talking about, but like we were talking about someone and they're like, I'm trying to be cool. How can I be cool? That's your problem right there. If you're trying, you can't. It can't be taught. You're either cool or you're not, and if you're not, you gotta live with that. You gotta accept. You gotta try to be funny or something, because you're just never gonna be cool. That's not your thing. And Leon is not funny, but man, is he cool.
Yeah.
He is so cool. I think there's another one. It's not a one-liner. Like, he doesn't say anything, but it's a little action that he does, and I love it. And Salazar is like taunting him or saying something, and he put again that little shit, and he puts his hand out, and Leon just throws his knife into his hand.
Yeah. Oh
Like
man.
he's just like, shut the fuck up, you know?
Yeah.
I
Such
love
cool.
that.
That's
It's
a
like-
badass knife too.
Oh,
Yeah, it
it's
is.
really cool. But that's just like, for me, like that moment sums up Leon's character. He's like, if you're gonna talk too much, I'm gonna knife your hand. Like that's it. I'm like, shut
Starship
this.
Trooper, that guy.
I'm shutting. He's
Yeah.
Starship Trooper, that guy. Yeah.
You
it's like,
can't
I'm
throw a knife,
shutting
you
this.
can't shoot a gun.
The object, I suppose, of the story is for Leon to rescue
Ashley Graham.
Ashley Graham, the president's daughter.
Leon, help! Help.
There's
That was one
nothing
of those
scarier than listening to her.
That's a really those are really crap moments in that game. Like, if the game has any downtime, it's escorting Ashley, and it's things like that. Like, remember when they were pitching The Last of Us about, like, you happen to walk like pretty much walk with this girl through like essentially a zombie infested city. The first thing everyone thought of, like, was, oh, for fuck, this is just going to be
It made escort mission. It gave escort missions a bad name.
It really did.
those
Like, I
segments
mean,
with Ashley.
the Emma sequence in 2, I think,
was another one.
is another one, but this
Yeah.
one was like, there's large chunks of the game
They
where
happen
you have
more,
to do it.
yeah, they happen more.
So fucking frustrating. It's not that it was, and it didn't make it scary. You
No.
know, she eliminated the scare factor, because all of a sudden now they're not after you, they're just after her. So they're just like picking her up, and you just have to shoot them and
It
get
kind
her
of
back.
became an
I think.
annoyance, I felt. And
Yeah.
as well, like with the MS segments in MGS2, it's a part of the game where the gameplay changes slightly, and you might like or dislike it. But with Ashley, once you're after doing your first escort mission with her, and she gets taken away, and you realize you're looking for her, now you know those bits are coming up again. And
Yeah.
you're nearly like, I hope I don't find her. You're like, fuck me. Maybe could she be dead when I find her? And it's like, oh, sorry, Mr. President, mission failed.
Yeah,
Does
she's
it-
really like, and the character is really, really annoying as well. Like, she's not a
That's on
very
purpose, right? That's not
likable.
by accident.
I don't know.
No, because like she even like at the end like flirts with Leon, and he straight up goes, "Not gonna happen." Like he just shuts her down, and she's like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, but I
You're
don't
not
know whether
Asian
that's
in a
anything
red
to do
dress.
with, like,
I'm not having you.
I don't know whether that's anything to do with her character or his. You see, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I think she could be written better, and I really hope if it comes to a remake, or when it comes to the remake, that she is rewritten completely. Like, that's one of the major things in the game that needs to be changed, is Ashley.
She's gonna be
Like,
a
you want
strong
to.
female character who can just do everything. That's what
Well,
she's gonna be
it's-
written into.
It's just, you just need to be able to like her.
Yeah.
You know what I
Because
mean? Like,
if the player, if you're putting the plot of the game in, like your object is to save her, it's like it's the whole thing. Yeah, like The Last of Us. Like if you did not like Ellie,
Yeah, you wouldn't care.
like, I feel like that is the core of that game. If you didn't like Ellie, suddenly The Last of Us goes from one of the best games ever made to just another game that's
Yeah.
actually like annoying to play. If you did not like Ellie, because that is the whole object of the game. And in this case, the object of the game is to rescue Ashley. And I feel like, yeah, it's very important to like the person you're trying to save, or to want to save her. And I mean, I did not. I wanted to kill monsters, so, and have
I
one
did
less to
like-
worry about. But
I
I
did
did
like-
not care about Ashley.
Her as being the motivation for the whole story, though. While
Yeah.
the character is annoying to listen to,
oh,
there was a
plot point
very-
wise, it's good.
yeah, plot point is it's really good because just
I was
disagree.
when I was replaying the game, there's something about the plot that bothers me that I would nearly rewrite. But I don't know.
Why
It's-
they
it's-
kidnap her from America and bring her
No, it's-
all the way to
no,
Spain,
it's
only
not
to send
that.
her back.
It's not that. I get that totally. I actually think that motivation is good. Like, so we take the president's daughter, we send her back. She infects the president. we don't even have to worry how far it goes after that because we have control of him and he controls the United States, right? So I get that as like a plot. I think it's actually really good. It's just in this scary invasion thing. And I love that the game takes place out of America as well. Like in this, the thing that doesn't, and I didn't think about it when I was a child, but I think about it now, in the replay of it. I would not make Ashley the president's daughter, and I would not make Leon a government agent.
Right.
Because he should not be the only one there. This is ridiculous. They have photos of the president's daughter in this little village in Spain. There should be helicopters everywhere. Like, there's like, it doesn't have that same Metal Gear Solid approach of a single agent going in. I feel like.
Well, I always felt that it was just like, to be honest, like I would imagine that we're gonna have a task force, right, or whatever like that, and Leon's just like, are you fucking serious? Look, I'm gonna be in there, I'm gonna be out of there. This is gonna be done in like less than a day, right? Don't worry about it. And it was very much with the whole, like, she's been spotted. They think she's been kidnapped, but not necessarily. But she's been spotted. So you don't want to. I would imagine the U.S. president doesn't want there to be this getting out into the like media news and stuff like that. So if you have helicopters going around the place, it's like, what's going on here? They want to keep it covert completely, but I want to say my best guy.
I'd imagine
with two dudes that
drive him there, the two police officers.
Yeah, that could die easily.
So I imagine also because if everyone knew, then that creates a vulnerability as well, and that's the last thing. That's the last thing a president would want of any country is to seem vulnerable.
But it's just, for me, what would work really well, and again, this doesn't like ruin the game on me or anything. It's just when I was playing, I just felt that it was kind of too relaxed for looking for the president's daughter. I felt it was a bit relaxed. Like, hey, have you seen this girl? Like, it was like, this is a huge deal.
Well, that's the thing. I still think it's like they're not 100% sure whether it's like a kidnapping or did she genuinely just run away from home kind of a thing. Right. So it's hard to know whether or not you need to be, in a panic because you don't know the situation. Like, she might be just really easy to track down.
But I think what would work really well is if Leon was a PI from his cop days. He's become a private.
What a shit position for Leon.
No.
It's like.
and no, hold on. And Ashley is the daughter of a very, very wealthy or influential family, but not the president. And no one else would listen to them or something.
Like maybe the head of Umbrella.
Hey, maybe, I don't know, but I just think that would be a really good avenue. So that's Fantasyland. Sure. Welcome to Chris's fan fiction of Resi 4. I think that could work really well.
That's nice.
It's just weird to send him in on his own. Like, even send a partner with him or something. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah,
the two police officers.
Yeah, he had two amigos.
That's because the Spanish government had to escort the agent in because he's working on. You know what I mean? Like, I like that.
There's probably that could possibly be a huge factor of it as well, as to like, the logistics of sending a team in versus just one guy.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's like how
Spanish
efficient
government might not want that. Like,
be like versus a whole team where you could have this one-man army going in.
Rambo.
Plus, when the stakes do get higher, they do get backup coming in when they find out that actually this is a lot more serious than it actually
Ed, isn't it? Ed in the helicopter.
What's his name?
Is that his name? And he gets shot down.
It's not
Dave. Is it Dave? Is it Ed in 5? Is it?
Is it Billy?
Is it Joe?
Kirk.
Steven?
5. I know. I remember that.
Is it Kirk?
It's
Jacko.
Like I said, the names are not memorable.
Well, except for Ada Wong,
who is another badass.
She is awesome.
Her introduction is so good.
It is. If they do a remake, I can't wait to see her character again because she was probably my favorite thing about Resi 2 remake.
Yeah.
She's so cool in it. She's such a femme fatale. At one point she's playing Leon, at another point she's like cares for Leon, and you're just not sure of the relationship. And I love that dynamic between the two of them in Resi 4. And like by the end of it, it's like, So was she a bad guy? Was she a good guy? Is she doing this for someone? Is she...
Why did she go in there with a really ridiculous red dress that's not
Right.
tactful at all?
They'll
But she's
definitely
so-
change that. But she's like
No, they
Eva
won't.
from MGS3.
No, they won't.
Yo, you have not seen her
It's
outfit
Resi 2
in Resi
Remake.
2.
No fucking way. There's
Hey,
nothing
it's different.
practical.
That's different
They-
being in a city.
She looks like
She
a
was
hooker.
just about to go on a night out, and
Yeah, like she got called off her night out and brought straight to Spain, and she was like, "Okay, the sooner I get this done, can I go back?" And they're
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, just get a sample, will you?"
Yeah, she's on a night out in China before she did Resi 4.
yeah, yeah. It is kind of like a Chinese style red dress, isn't it?
Yeah.
well, she is, isn't she?
I think she might be. Is there a character that we haven't? Oh, Louis Serra. Come on, you
Louis
mentioned
Serra
it.
is a great addition.
He is so cool. I would like, if they do a remake, I would like to expand on his character more. He doesn't show up all that often, and
Play
yet
as him.
I feel like he was a fan favorite. What? What'd you say?
Get to play as him or something.
Oh yeah, that would be cool. I'd like a
Imagine
second.
like some extra, because remember in the PS2 version of Resi 4, they had the separate ways playthrough where you could play as Ada and
yeah.
all the stuff that she was doing. Like it'd be cool if you can like get to play as Louis.
Other separate ways.
And yeah, and do you think if they did a remake, do you think they would put in the Ada missions as well? Do you think they would do that?
Hopefully.
I think they would, but they would charge you for it, you know?
I suppose, yeah.
Definitely. They'd do it like a
Different ways
DLC,
to
kind of
DLC,
thing.
right?
Yeah.
See,
If
Resi
they
4
were.
is it's quite a long Resi game as well.
Yeah. Yeah, in comparison to like
Comparison.
what came before it, yeah, it definitely is.
It is quite long.
Yeah.
But
But there's a lot more areas and stuff, you know.
yeah. How did we all feel about and I suppose at the time it was a big talking point. And some people loved it and some people hated it. It's the first game to get away from the typical zombies, the T-virus, Umbrella. We're in a very different setting and we're dealing with a very
I think
different
it's
thing.
its appeal, I think, you know, because but even after it, zombies, man, they just got so stale. But like the few games that like break away from that, Resident Evil 4, Dead Space, and The Last of Us, right? They show, look, you can genuinely get the same type of experience if you just change up your enemy, right? It doesn't always have to be the, you know, Dawn of the Dead style zombie.
Yeah. All right, well, hold on. Are these guys still zombies? Do they still class as zombies?
You see, I say yes, right?
I
I
was about
still
to
say that The Last of Us has zombies, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though they go, they're not zombies, but like I said, they're just saying like they're not Dawn of the Dead zombies. A
Yeah.
zombie is literally just something that doesn't have a mind of itself, and just has like this. It's controlled almost like by a hive mind kind of a mentality, right? It just has one singular purpose, but it's a body that's been reanimated and can't control itself. It doesn't even have to be dead. That's a zombie. But
Right.
the whole Dawn of the Dead kind of a zombie just completely took over and reinvented the name. But yes, Ganados are zombies.
What do you think, Eric?
Well, I mean, like it was pretty okay for me for not to use zombies, considering when I was younger, I found zombies like the most terrifying thing in the world. So I was pretty okay with it not being zombies. That was okay. I feel much more comfortable. Actually, I'm not finishing that sentence.
Now my brain is wandering.
I knew exactly where that was going to go.
I
Did
don't.
not finish that.
I do not know where it was going.
But yeah, no, I like it definitely would be way too scary for me if there were the Dawn of the Dead decomposing corpses
right.
dungeon action. And now I don't mind zombies. And actually, I got to a point where because no one was giving me that classic zombie, I was dying for it. So
Okay.
when
yeah.
when I got
For a
Resident Evil
while,
2, I was delighted to fight those type of zombies. But at the
And they're really
time,
good. They're really good in it.
no. But at
Yeah.
the time, because I wasn't a fan of zombies at all, it was a nicer way for me to get into horror games.
And do you class, since Adam answered it as well, do you class Ganados, Necromorphs, and I don't know the actual official name on them, like clickers and the likes in The Last of Us.
I think they're just the infected. I was going to say the exact same thing as Adam. Like they are because they are mindless.
Yeah.
Roaming around. Now necromorphs, while they don't look like Dawn of the Dead zombies, they are dead and they are brought back to life.
They literally are
They
zombies,
are,
right?
yeah,
They just have a
animated
different
corpses.
design. Like
Yeah.
the design doesn't have to be the same, I suppose, isn't it? That's
And actually, I suppose Dead Space design is fantastic for such a new design on zombies.
cool.
Yeah, no, I would for the Ganados and everything, because they are mindless and are working off of like a natural instinct or like a basic instinct and don't have like a higher sense of thinking. I would class them as zombies.
I would as well. I would definitely class them as zombies. So I feel like they still fit in what the series is all about. But I love the new setting as well, and I love getting away from that. It got away from Raccoon City. That you're in this place that feels slightly otherworldly. Like, I mean,
it feels more remote.
Yeah, it feels really remote. Feels really isolated. It feels like, you know, if you die here, no one's gonna ever find you.
Yeah.
Like, and even like when they're dumping the body into the lake of one of the police officers, and it's like he's just gonna be a missing officer for years. Like no one's ever gonna find him here. There's this really creepy, awful horror thing, and then the whole thing of a cult.
Yeah,
a cult is a very terrifying idea, I think. The horror type of a cult.
Every cult's a horror.
I mean, actually,
they're so.
You're next.
They're so scary.
Let's give that a go.
That's the thing. Like, I mean, like with this, like that is a real scare. Like it is.
Yeah.
Cults are terrifying.
Like we have seen in the past the extremities that some of the cults can go to.
Yeah, like I can't remember the name of that.
Kind of like in certain horror movies, even where there's cults, and it's just this terrifying idea of these people. Like even I know everyone laughs about that scene from The Wicker Man, right? With not the bees, with Nicolas Cage, right?
That's terrifying, yeah.
And it's his delivery is funny, but I remember someone showing me that on YouTube, and they were laughing about it. Go, look how funny this is, right? But for some reason, I like totally ignored Nicolas Cage's delivery of that line, and I couldn't help but be horrified by all these normal-looking people doing this horrific thing to this person in celebration. It scared the shit out of me, and I get that feeling again in this game with like these villagers that just look like farmers doing horrible shit.
But it's like you don't even have to go to fiction. Like I mean, Jim Jones,
isn't it? Yeah, the Jim Jones
in the fucking US, man. Jesus Christ, like that is one of the. I'm surprised that that's not like something that's widely discussed. You know what I mean? It was almost 1,000 people.
Yeah.
Men, women, and children all died just because he told them to. And any that kind of figured it out and tried to run away, he had like, you know, he had his own personal guard like shoot them as they were trying to run away.
Yeah.
Like that's like this kind of shit, you know what I mean? And
then there was the Manson family. Were they the ones that committed all the atrocious
obviously
murders?
that's horrendous. But I'm
it's
surprised
not as big.
that is not near as
big,
bad.
And yet that seems
it's
to
another
be
example.
It's
of,
mad that's
famous.
pop. Yeah, that's like, you know, everyone knows about the Manson family, but like this guy, 1,000 people. Like,
yeah, that's crazy. It's huge.
It's massive. Yeah.
And
but there was a lot of them kind of stuff. But like this, so this is playing off like real horror, you know? Like, yeah, pharmaceutical scientist stuff can be a bit kind of, ooh, what are they up to? Because they're not telling us what they're doing, kind of a thing.
Well, I think now we can all say that that
oh,
is
not really
terrifying. the pharmaceutical outbreak of a disease is horrifying.
It is horrifying, but it's definitely more fiction than this. You know what I mean? Like the cult thing is something that happens, and it's not that long. It's not that long ago. Like that was like nearly the 80s when that happened. You know, like, you know, that's a reality. It's scary when you try to get people. You know, some people do want to have that escapism from, the kind of developed world, if you want to call it, but they just want to live off the land and do their own thing, and then they'd have this like cult leader tell them what to do, kind of a thing, and it just destroys their humanity, and they kind of feel like they can't do anything other than listen to this dude, like, and that's exactly what's happening in this game. Like, it's really terrifying.
I think as well
Are they zombies?
I think as well it's particularly interesting, or I always found it interesting anyway in this game, the Los Plagas, right? And the parasite that they have found. It's not a man-made thing, right? So like the T virus or the G virus and all these viruses that make these horrific monsters, like it seems totally impossible. Right? Like they try and ground the T virus a bit, but like the G virus and all these tyrants and these giant spiders and giant snakes, and you kind of go, well, like this is scary within the game, but it's not possible. It's not ever going to happen. I don't have to worry about eyeballs growing out of people's heads because they drank something. Like this is just not going to happen. The Las Plagas, though, like I'm not saying obviously I think it's a real thing, but just the idea of finding a living thing, much like The Last of Us.
Yeah, it's very like The Last
of Us. Then takes over the human body.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, was this an insect that evolved? Is this another bacteria that has always been there? Like, where has it come from? Has it evolved from the ocean and gone deep into rocks or whatever? The point is they found this living thing, and it is an invasive species that has taken over these people.
Yeah.
And, like, fucked up their heads. And so in that case, you're like, it could happen? Like,
well, I mean,
that's scary.
Like, yeah, I mean, that, like, the virus is the global pandemic at the moment, like that's something that just found its way in nature but evolved to be able to actually attack humans and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are foreign entities that will evolve and try to take us out. They won't like turn us into mindless zombies, but that's again another really horrific thing. It's like the unpredictable kind of takeover of nature. And cults. Smash them two together. You got Resi 4.
We're now talking politics and religion, the two things we were told never to talk about.
Yeah. Bam's probably going to end up saying something to me after all this. She'll be like, what the hell are you talking about?
Don't ever mention Jim Jones in this house.
Yeah.
No, I'm only joking.
Always mention Jim Jones in your house.
Always. Do you guys have a favorite boss fight in the game? It's been a while since I asked Eric for a favorite, so I just want to watch him struggle.
I mean, if you had to ask a favorite supporting character, I would have been like, oh, the Merchant. He was class because we haven't talked about him.
Whoa! Yes.
Let's forget about favorite boss fights.
Yeah, screw boss fights. The frickin' Merchant. Yeah.
Venice.
He's awesome.
What's his deal?
What is his deal? Does anyone actually know?
So
he has the eyes of a Ganado, right?
Yep.
Not in the PS4 version. He has blue eyes in that.
PS4 version, he doesn't.
Oh, they must have changed it.
Which is weird. And why did they do that? So if they've changed that, when people kept saying he's definitely a Ganado, right? And then they have altered it after the fact. Is it because they want you to not think he's a Ganado? But if you try to kill him, he's immortal, right? As well.
Yeah, he'll fall down and die, but he'll come back later, like at the next merchant point.
Everywhere. What is his deal? He's so interesting.
I would have preferred if he was a Ganado because it creates this idea of like, I don't know, maybe there's one Las Plagas that's not connected to the hive mind and doing its own thing. It's like exploiting, like using the host as like just that, a host, and then letting the host.
Well, whatever he is, like I obviously would like he's a game mechanic, right? First of all.
Yep.
And it's not totally clear, I suppose, whether he's just there for the gamer or whether he's an actual, like if you were to make Resident Evil 4 into a movie, for example, you wouldn't include the Merchant, would you? He's not story specific, but the experience of it as a game is not the same without him.
He's definitely a Ganado.
Yeah.
Because,
I'd say so.
Yeah, in the original, like, I mean, yeah, whatever, they changed his eyes in the ports, but like in the original, he's absolutely Ganado. But he seems to be able to control it. So unless there's Unless it's like Sadler in some way, where he's like got this kind of
another
like
queen or
queen,
something.
yeah, like a queen plagus or something like that, and he manages to find, that he just can live with it, use it to his advantage, and just profit.
Yeah. Maybe he's like. Do you think he wants to help Leon kill all these guys? Because like
Maybe he's like Sadler's brother and wants to take him down.
Well, I was thinking more like his family possibly lived in that village.
Yeah. There's definitely a really cool backstory here for
the merchant. If they do the remake,
merchant.
you need the merchant's backstory.
The merchant of
I actually
Spain.
like that he's this enigmatic figure though that like we know nothing about, and he's like, but he's kind of iconic, Yeah. And the music whenever you meet him, you're like, oh, thank God.
Oh yeah.
See that blue flame?
You see that blue flame, and you're like, I'm in paradise, baby. Give me that typewriter.
Praise.
I actually used to think when I was younger, when I was playing it, because he wears these like brown fingerless like woolly gloves or something.
Yeah.
But because of the graphics, you're not really able to tell. So I used to think his hand was like really decomposed, and then his fingers were really long nails or something. And I was like, what the hell happened to this guy? How did he get so deformed in his hands?
When you were painting that picture, I thought he had monkey hands, and I thought he was like this monkey man merchant. Like he just had these furry, hairy hands or something. No, these could be like the biggest or the best theories about the merchant. It's like, I think he's half monkey. I think that's what's going on. He always reminds me of, and I don't know why, but in Greek mythology, Charon the boatman.
Okay.
There's no comparison, but I don't know why. I always think of like this kind of ferryman of the dead kind of thing. Yeah, I don't know what it is. He always reminds me of that kind of role. I don't know why. He's almost like a guide. I know he's selling you weapons, but he's also, I don't know, there's something.
Like a Virgil kind of character?
Yeah, follow the light kind of thing. I think it would be really cool in a remake if he plays this kind of guide. Not with you the whole, like, Jesus, no, not like that, but if he actually gives you bits of lore. I think that would be really cool. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah, I would love if they explored the character a bit more. Like, where does he come from,
but not all of it.
Why is he like this?
Not
all of it. Just kind of like something really simple, and maybe you find it in a letter or something.
Yeah, like if you go looking for it, you'll find out bits about him.
Yeah, shoot all the blue medallions, and you'll get this like backstory or something.
All right, Chadley. But and it became that became another game mechanic in some games, like a merchant character, right?
Yeah, there's a straight up copy of him in Destiny.
There's
this guy called
there is
Agent of the Nine, I think it's called, and he's like
Zur, isn't it? Is X
Zur? Yeah, Zur. And he's this character who's kind of slightly hunched a little bit in a long trench coat, and he's got a hood up and like
a little backpack on him,
and his voice is like that, and he sells you weapons.
Awesome.
Like he's straight up the merchant from Resi 4.
And does he call you a stranger?
No.
I love that whole thing. I love that dialogue. But here's the thing, like he speaks perfect English. Where's he from?
Oh, he's definitely Spanish.
No, I know he is, but like the rest of them speak Spanish to you, and then some of only Salazar and Sadler speak kind of
and Mendez.
They speak English.
And Lucera.
Mendez
doesn't speak English.
He doesn't speak, does he?
He does.
He just goes. And
no,
that's his stomach.
Mendez grabs you. He's choking you. All right. Yeah. And then your parasite eyes come on, and then he goes, "Oh, you have the blood of our people, and rock on, bro. And I'll see you later." Yeah, something like
that. I actually love that whole thing where Leon is infected, and now it becomes a thing of not only save the daughter, but find a cure. Yeah, like eliminate this parasite before it takes over me. And he has these freak out moments where he'll pass out and he'll wake up and time has passed as well. Like it's that was a really good choice to infect him early in the game too.
I think they could have played with that mechanic a bit more.
Yeah, I think if you think about the idea of a remake, with what they do with like hallucination scenes and stuff nowadays of characters, like I think there could be a really cool thing where every so often the parasite starts affecting you and you start seeing the world
Imagine, right? That would actually be good.
Different.
For one moment, you get an hallucination of Mr. X coming after you. Just for one moment, there's
Oh,
your
like
stocking moment.
like almost like flashbacks of Raccoon City kind of a
Yeah.
shit. Oh,
That
that would be
fucking
lit.
awesome. Yeah, if he gets like if his PTSD starts playing up,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
from his experiences, particularly because he starts seeing Ada again, it could start like really reminding him of. He's like, I've like this shit has happened to me before, like.
Yeah. Because there's no way he sleeps soundly. No way.
Yeah, man.
Oh
mean,
man,
that's
that
what they-
nuke
I
can
don't-
cure more than just zombies. It cures a bad memory.
Nukes everyone.
I think that's one thing that they.
No, but
that
the
games
green
need.
herbs. The green herbs help him sleep at night.
Yeah, but like
Definitely.
that's the thing. That's something that they should delve into with the Resident Evil characters. They all seem to just be perfectly fine. Like they're going into hell, literal hell, and they're just like, yeah, grand,
Just
cool.
another day on the job.
Yeah, just like nothing wrong with them. And it's like how like they must all have nightmares, all of them.
Yeah.
Like absolutely drinking themselves to sleep.
No, taking the green herbs, man.
They're definitely taking it. They're chopping the green with the red, mixed with a bit of yellow, and they're snorting that shit.
With a zest of blue.
No blue herb.
Just a zest.
There's blue herbs in in Resi 2.
Yeah, but
Oh.
I think 4 is just
Okay.
green, red, and yellow, isn't it?
Green, red, yellow,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, that's all. Yeah, sorry, back to the question. Your favorite boss fight in the game?
Yeah.
And your favorite part of the game, or just the ones that come to mind at the moment? Because we often
I
ask these
really
questions.
like although it could be quite controversial, the quick time event fight scene with Krauser.
The knife one.
Yeah,
Why would that be controversial?
just because quick time events kind of became,
What were
let's
you?
just say hated, like greatly hated.
Really?
But I think there are games where quick time events are like, what the fuck? Like, why is this even here? Like, this is really
Right.
shit. Take me out of the moment. Resident Evil 4, it works so well
Yeah.
on GameCube.
No, but
Not
and
so much
in
on
principle
PlayStation.
as well, like it does work well. Yeah.
on which?
In principle, it works.
In principle, yeah, but on the PS2, it's like you press the button and you're like waiting, you know.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
And the
Slight
scene
delay.
plays. You're like, oh, that was cool, I guess. But on the GameCube,
That's only now though. At the time, it was like, whoa.
That was so fast.
Well,
no, I didn't. I felt it broke a bit, but in the GameCube one, it was pretty much seamless. Like you press it and it just keeps going.
So does that knife fight count as both your favorite moment and your favorite boss fight?
Favorite moment? I can't think of my favorite moment. Probably just the opening, actually. Probably just the minute you get into that village, and you're
Yeah.
trying to figure it out, and you're like, well, grand. I'll go into this house, and it's like, sweet, I can barricade a door. Is that a chainsaw?
That is
Just
actually.
seeing them, like, you've got all these new abilities and shit, and then it turns out so do they.
yeah. It was like, oh shit, the zombies have axes.
Yeah.
There you go. How about you, Eric?
Favorite moment. First thing that came to my head when you said that was the bit when you're in the big house with Lewis, Sarah, and Ashley, and you have to barricade it from all the people.
Right. Wow.
Because
You like to live in the fast lane.
Yeah, I just
Stressful.
because it reminds me of like the siege moments from like I don't know, like Helm's Deep or something. It kind of like especially with the ladders, and then you gotta knock the ladders down. It's like fuck off, Urukai.
Yeah.
And like just the like you start off on the ground floor, and then it's like oh no, we're getting too overrun. You gotta fall back to the keep, and then you go up the stairs, and then you gotta defend that area. So that'd probably be my favorite area. Favorite boss fight is definitely not the boss fight with the lizard guy, the Predalien, when he's chasing after you. You gotta freeze him because that's annoying.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. Favorite boss fight. Also, not the Thing. That's annoying as well.
Which one's the Thing? Is that the guy with the big long tongue?
Yeah,
And,
Yeah, he's kind of like a centipede
He's
dude.
so weird. Yeah, I actually forgot about him until the other day.
You have to you drop the platforms. Like he's
Yeah.
chasing you through the platforms. You drop the platform and you think you're all good, and then he jumps up and you have to actually fight him.
It's a big thing in Resi. boss fights, isn't it? It's like you have to fight the boss and also maneuver the map. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you gotta push buttons and you're like, Jesus, just let me go. And you don't move all that fast.
Yeah, the another cool kind of, I don't know whether it's a boss fight or just more of a like a tougher enemy, but the two El Gigantes in the kind of furnace area.
That counts as a boss fight, yeah. Yeah.
That's cool because like you drop one of them down into the into the kind of furnace and he starts to melt. But if you run too close, like he'll just pop back out and grab you and drag you in. Like that's really cool.
It's another big thing this game had actually was lots of ways to die.
Yeah.
Sure did.
Inspired lots of other games to do that.
Yeah. It's like kick that off as a trend. Let's come up with creative ways to kill our characters.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. Have you got one, Eric?
No, not at all.
My favorite boss fight is the El Gigante, the first one you fight. It's not hugely exciting, but it's just like there's this big dramatic cutscene of them pulling him out through the gate and he's kicking the guards and everything like that. And then I like the moment where the dog comes and helps you if you helped it earlier. And it's like this cool. It's like, oh, so if I do something, it actually has an effect. Like later on, there's this karma thing going on. And then also, I just have a really fun memory of myself and my friends Danny and Lee. We were playing Resident Evil 4 at Lee's house, and I was on his file, and we had no ammunition, like fuck all ammunition, and we had to fight the El Gigante. And so every time we tried it, we kept dying because like we kept running out of bullets, and just had to try it with the knife. And we were just trying to knife the Gigante to death, like literally just cutting his leg until the parasite would come out. It was like, this doesn't even make sense. Like, I'm not hurting his head or his back at all. And then Danny eventually, I must give him the credit. Danny was the one who killed it with a knife. And we sort of went, well done, Danny. I love that. I love that fight. I had a lot of fun doing it. And then favorite moment might be when Leon throws the knife into Salazar's hand.
What a badass moment.
Or it could be actually just when he says that line, monsters. At least after this, there'll be one less to worry about. It's like, yeah, man.
I'd say I actually really liked the bit where you're kind of on the island and you have to go to this, I suppose, Sadler's Throne maybe or something. I can't remember which bit it was, but the laser room, like it's just straight out of the film.
All right.
And he does all these like weird acrobats to kind of get through it. Like it's kind of it's kind of like the Twin Snakes kind of a moment.
Yeah.
But it is definitely a nod to the movies.
I remember I watched that scene recently. Some of the stuff he does are just like, that's just pointless. You could have just lied down on the floor. It would have been grand.
Yep.
But he like does all these
Leon, man.
Favorite boss fight, I'll probably choose the whale thing. There's something about the whole just holding the harpoon and waiting in the boat for this thing to kind of like who's hunting who kind of moment.
Yeah, and it doesn't work like a lot of the other boss fights where it's like do something 3 times or you know.
Yes, all the others is just to shoot them.
Yeah. I like that fight style, and it kind of like using the hooks and all. It kind of reminds me of like Moby Dick or something.
Yeah, it's
like kind of cool.
A lot of cool stuff now.
Yeah, I like that one as well.
I actually, because when I was going through them all, I was just thinking of a lot of annoying boss fights in that. Krauser's. The last time I fight Krauser,
the actual fight with Krauser is not good. Yeah, the knife fight segment though is probably the best encounter with Krauser. He always reminded me of Vulcan from Snake Eater.
Mm-hmm.
He always reminded me. He even talks like him, which is kind of weird. But that's okay for him though. He's American. It's the Vulcan voice actor is strange. He's supposed to be Russian. I suppose we've talked about gameplay, how we feel about the game, the characters, the bosses, the creatures, the plot, all that stuff. The question really is, do we think it should be remade?
Yes.
We've even talked about yes, episode over. We've even said like if they were to remake it, things that you would do differently, but should they remake it? Does it need a remake?
No, nothing really needs a remake.
Okay.
We don't need it, Chris. We
don't need it.
Want it?
Do you want it?
Yeah, I do want the remake.
Yeah, I would probably get that in a heartbeat. Yeah.
I actually empathize with people who are like No, don't touch it, don't touch it.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
it's definitely the Skyrim of the Resident Evil series. Like it's just gotten ported so many times. Started on the GameCube, then onto PS2, then onto Wii, then onto PC, then PS3, then Xbox 360, then to the Switch, then to the PS4, then to the Xbox One. Like that's ridiculous. It even ended up on the iPhone. There's kind of a version of it, like a dumbed down version. Like it's like I understand like the frustration with it because it just seems like a money robbing thing. But the thing is like that's the same game that's being ported onto these different things. And I think with each iteration of it getting ported, you start to see its flaws. Like the PS4 version is a horrendous version of it because it's too sharp, and therefore you see how like crap the textures are. On a PS2,
those were the best graphics out there.
The muddiness of it, like the real blurriness of the resolution, kind of aids in the visual aesthetic of the game. But to get the Ori engine treatment on that game, like imagine going through the village, right, and there's like that like the muddy kind of puddles being gathered in the mud and stuff like that, you know, like,
and the weird, crazy flowing hair that has a life of its own.
Yeah, it's not going to be just an upres. Like the gameplay mechanics are going to have to be improved. Like it would get a full proper Ori remake treatment. So I don't see why anyone would hate that. You know, we just discussed that Resident Evil 4 doesn't hold up. You know, I think it holds up if you play it on its original consoles, but as a port, it doesn't hold up.
Yeah.
So yeah, like who doesn't want to replay it in all its glory?
Well, actually, Eric doesn't. Isn't that right, Eric? It's a joke. I'm just segueing over to you. It would just be funny if you went, I don't. I would hate that. When he said nobody would hate that, it's like, I would hate it. Unless they add smithing.
Maybe they should add smithing. Make your own armor and costumes.
Yeah. That'd be fucking unreal. Actually,
you joke about that, but that'd be class. Like if you could actually go to like a fast food joint and get fat, that'd be great. Like, right? And then smith your own weapons and bullets. You could do like a John Constantine on it from the Keanu Reeves Constantine, where you're like making your own bullets.
Yeah, man.
That's a really obscure reference. Yes, to your question, I would actually like the game to be remade, and I would again buy it in RP.
Yeah. Okay. Segue
to you, Chris.
I would not be parading for a remake, or have never paraded for a remake in the way that I was for Final Fantasy VII, for example. However, if they announced it, I pre-ordered the second it was available, and I'd be getting it day one. Absolutely. Like, there's no question about it. Like, yes, remake it. Of course, remake it. Like, are you fucking crazy? It's an amazing game, and if you could make it play even better, then fuck yeah. I would hope.
It should stop there, though.
Well, the only thing is, I don't think it should be the next game they remake.
I do, absolutely, right?
Yeah, this is where I think they should remake Code Veronica first.
No way.
I do.
No.
I really do. Code Veronica is a game that, don't get me wrong, I would much prefer to play Resi 4.
Yes.
Like, yeah, but I just feel like it would be really bad to like skip that or leave it out. I think it's a game that badly could do with a remake in terms of their series. And Code Veronica is the true Resident Evil 3.
Yeah.
Like Resident Evil 3 is titled Resident Evil 3, but Resident Evil 3 is really a side game. Code Veronica is the actual like third installment in the series, really. And to just skip it, I think would be really not like that game really established furthermore the adversary of Wesker, Chris' relationship with him. I wouldn't mind playing more as Claire, much like the Claire from Resi 2 in a Code Veronica setting. Like, Claire was awesome in that game, especially bringing over those gameplay mechanics and then being in the mansion and playing a Metroidvania style game in Code Veronica. So yes, do make Resi 4. Don't not do it. But I do think Code Veronica should be the next game to get a remake because it's that bit older as well.
Yeah. I just feel that like, yes, it establishes Wesker as being this adversary, but at this point it's like we know it, So you don't need to do that. And I think that like when it started to get to Code Veronica and those games, subsequent games that came after that, it's like that's when the series started to get really stale.
Yeah.
And it was 4 that brought it back to life. We all know what they're going to do 4. That's the thing.
I think
just cut to the fucking chase and make the game, because otherwise I think it might end up like with not just other, well, not really remakes, but games that got ported, you know, like the remasters for PS4 and stuff like that. It started to get really kind of like, oh Jesus, another remaster. You don't want by the time to get to 4 for you to say, oh Jesus, another remake.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. What I don't want is a remake after 4.
Why not?
I want 4.
Yeah, they can do whatever the fuck they want.
I don't mean every series. Yeah, they can do what they want, obviously. And I'm just saying that me as a player, I personally don't want a remake after 4. However,
but would you jump on Code Veronica? Like if they remade it, would you jump on that?
I would be interested to play Code Veronica because
you see that's the thing. Like I think a lot of people would just be a bit like, okay, maybe I'll try it out, but I don't think it has like the buzz and hype that you would get from a 4 remake.
Jesus, no. I like.
Yeah.
Compared
so financially, to 4, I think it makes more sense.
Compared to 4, hell no. Jesus, no. Like there's very few games would have the same buzz or hype as remaking Resident Evil 4. Are you kidding me? Resident Evil 4 is up there as a classic. Code Veronica, because it wasn't on the PlayStation, didn't get played by an awful lot of people. It was on a different. It started off on I can't remember. It was started off on it was the Dreamcast. Like I just feel like if it was remade and played the way Resi 2 was played, like I never went back to finish Resident Evil 2, the PS1 version, and never had an interest in trying it. Even like I played a little bit of it when I was younger, and even though I loved Resi 4 and I played Resi 5 and I played Resi 7, and I was at this point I would consider myself a Resi fan. Yeah. I would never go back to play Resi 2, which a lot of people considered like one of the best of the series. So why was that? It's because it's outdated, and I feel like I missed the train. And I feel that way about Code Veronica. I feel like if it had the Resi 2 treatment, I would play it.
Yeah, but I think like after 4 they could remake it. You know?
All right, yeah, I see what you mean. Like, yeah, you could go back to it.
Yeah, like I just feel like it could get to a point where, you know, if they leave 4, it could become distasteful for people. Yeah. Whereas if they just like now that they're on like this roll, like just go straight to 4, make it, and then you know if people really really are craving it, then they can remake Veronica.
Yeah, I'd actually be okay with that because Code Veronica itself as a story doesn't do anything for 4. Yeah. So after Resident Evil 3, doing Resident Evil 4, and then doing Resident Evil Code Veronica, yeah, I'd be fine with that. I would be interested.
Resident Evil 5.
Nope, they can stop. They can stop. Absolutely stop.
Absolutely stop there. I'm just saying, like, I do think, like, there's been a lot of talk, obviously, after Resident Evil 3. It's like, oh, Resident Evil 4, that's obviously the next one. Mm-hmm. And I was just sort of like, I mean, Code Veronica was the real Resident Evil 3. I'm very surprised, like, there's been no talk of it, no mention of it. But yes, it wasn't actually played by an awful lot of people because it wasn't on the console that everyone played the other Resis on. Like, it's kind of weird. What do you think, Eric?
I mean, just do 4.
Okay. You wouldn't want a Code Veronica remake?
I don't. The only reason I want it is so I can see Wesker in like full high def and everything. And yeah, those graphics are great, but I don't know enough about Code Veronica to in any way be hyped or interested. I wouldn't say no to it because I do love what they're doing with all these new Resident Evil games.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say no to it.
That's my point. Is what you just said there, which is I don't know enough about it. That's exactly my point. It's like I would actually like to play it because I don't know enough about it, and it tells a lot about the Umbrella background. Mm-hmm. I don't know enough about it, and I will not. I know I won't play the original.
I think we'd get a Resi 8 before we see a remake of Veronica.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I would say what's going to happen is Resi 4 Remake is the next game we're getting, and then Resi 8, and they're going to be happening with two different teams like at the same time. But hey, I'm not like, don't get me wrong, like I'm not like, if Resi 4 Remake gets announced tomorrow, I'm not going to go, fuck's sake, it should have been Code Veronica. Like, I got to be on that hype train, obviously, and I got to be following closely, and I got to be getting it.
With the super special edition, they're going to give you Dr. Salvador's chainsaw.
Fuck yeah. I do hope as well, though.
That was a controller for the original.
Really?
You could get a chainsaw.
How the hell is that work?
What?
Yeah, it was like
yeah.
No, I don't. I'm gonna have to look this up now. I think it was
it's better
GameCube.
What?
How
you
does
don't
that
get
work,
to use a chainsaw. What? Why would you have a chainsaw shaped controller?
This
is ridiculous.
I mean,
it was. Yeah, Resident Evil 4 chainsaw controller.
I mean, I'm trying to think of that shape. I can't think of that shape. That's just what?
That's so weird.
I don't think it was it was for the GameCube. Yeah.
Wow.
I think people have made their own version since, but
that's bizarre.
Yeah, it is a bit weird.
I think as well, if they remake 4, which I think they probably are, I do hope that it's the visuals and the gameplay that get redone. And there's some
most of everything else.
There. Yeah, I do hope it's quite a close retelling that I would like.
I think also because Leon's older again, I have no problem with the actor that they had for Resi 2, but because Chainsaw's not older. Because Leon's older.
Don't throw me off. I'll say whatever I see.
I'm Ron Burgundy.
Yeah, you'll read anything you see on the teleprompter.
Because Leon's older, more experienced, bring back Matthew Mercer for it.
Yeah, I'd like to see Matthew Mercer do
definitely.
it.
And then put Robin Atkins in there somewhere. I don't know, just put him in there.
He's the merchant.
Yes. And give the merchant more.
No, I think we definitely touched on like improvements that they could build upon and extra story beats and stuff like that. There's even sections that I wouldn't mind they just kind of got rid of as well. Like I don't think
I'd be okay with that.
Doesn't really matter as long as they have the core game down. I would prefer there's bits where they could just remove and maybe expand on like the village and stuff like that, you know, like make certain areas larger.
The village is very small for the amount of villagers there are.
Yeah. I would love them to get that kind of. Do you remember the announcement trailer for Resi 5? Where it was that like him just walking, but then every now and then he looks down an alleyway and it's like a shadow walks by and stuff like that. Like if they could capture that kind of atmosphere in Resi 4, walking through the village, that
would be the best game that I never play.
Yeah.
And I'd have been too afraid to actually play it. And that, I think, concludes our thoughts on Resident Evil 4, which is a game I'm sure will get mentioned again in the future, particularly if and when the remake happens. But let us know your own thoughts on Resident Evil 4, the original, and also whether you want a remake for and any other remakes you'd be interested in. Because Resident Evil 4 was one of the 5 PS2 games that we classed as our favorites, we're going to look at the other 4 games in the follow-up episodes and give them all their own discussion and analysis in a similar way that we've been doing with the other games we've been talking about so far. But until then, stay safe and talk to you next time.
Chainsaw.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, dude.
Bye, dude.